Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening to us on places such as IRN, and of course live on our website at computeramerica.com. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and we have a great show planned for you where, I know, we missed her dearly last month, but she's here, and my goodness, I think she's going to make up for it with a bunch of great topics that include, everything from smart speakers, Eco Tank printers, which we have interviewed Epson for, but, haven't really had a chance to talk about them from an independent third party, and a bunch of other topics. So if you want to find out anything and everything that we're talking about today, feel free to head on over to computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find a link to Sandy's website. You'll find the topics. You'll find the audio and video archives of the show. Just everything and anything that you could possibly want right there. So if you're busy, if you're working, don't worry, we have you covered. So and while you're there, be sure to check out the social media contest brought to you by Logitech, and also be sure to check out the live video feed, which is brought to you by OWC. So, and I think with that being said, we are just going to jump into it. So this entire show is dedicated to talking with Sandy Berger, who is Computer America's consumer electronics correspondent and expert. So Sandy, how are you doing? And welcome back onto Computer America.
I'm doing fine. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you again. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started? Actually, just kind of ask how you are, and just give a little bit of background for people who maybe haven't heard of you before. Kind of what do you do as a day job when you're not on Computer America?
Well, I am a tech journalist, so basically I write about technology for various websites, magazines, and et cetera, et cetera. And I have my own website, which is compukiss.com. And basically I review products. I talk about the latest in technology. I try to make things easy to understand because some of the technology is way over everyone's head, which we saw in the Zuckerberg interviews yesterday with the senators and House members who didn't quite catch on to everything. So anyway, I try to make it easy for people to understand. And when I come on this show, we talk basically about products. And I give my honest opinion about whether I've liked them or not, and also what you should look for various products.
Right. And, since you brought it up, it is time sensitive and time relevant. But I think Zuckerberg is back on the Hill today to give his testimony about the whole Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, Russian, whatever.
Right.
But I guess this is a problem Mark is running into that, we here on the show have run into. And I'm sure that you run into every single time you write an article. And that's, if you could give some advice to Mark, who I'm sure is, whipping out a smartphone to listen to Computer America while he's giving congressional testimony, just some advice that you kind of follow yourself when you try to explain technology to people who maybe have never even heard of the concepts that you're talking about. And, how do you mix that useful information and the fact that, even if you include everything useful, they might not know how to use the information if they even heard it.
That's very, very true. You've got to look at people's backgrounds, and some of our senators, representatives are fairly old, and they did not grow up with computers. So basically, you have to start with the basics. You have to explain to people the things that most journalists don't explain. I mean, they start talking at a certain level, assuming everybody knows what's going on, and it's just not true. We have hundreds and thousands of people who don't understand what social media is and all the other things involved with it. So I think the important thing, the thing I try to do with my CompuKiss website, and that I've always done with all my writing, is to try to get to the basics and explain it in terms that everybody can understand.
Right. And that's not the easiest thing to do because I even
Right.
find myself, just here on the show, we never take anything for granted. If we start throwing out acronyms or things like that, we always try to explain ourselves. But I do take for granted that, the people who listen to Computer America have set up a router before, have worked on a computer, have, transferred operating systems. Like they have some pretty, basic experience with computers. But I guess when you're talking to an even wider audience, you run into that situation where you go, what's wrong with this laptop? It looks amazing. And then you're like, oh, well, sure, it's a pretty good laptop, but the CPU is, 7 years old and it's going to crap out in the next year. And it's like, it's just, I guess the subtleties, it's a bit harder to convey.
It is. And, I've written for years for Hardware Secrets, which is a very geeky online magazine. And those people there have a high level of understanding of a lot of the terminology. I also spent 8 years writing and developing the website for AARP. And that was actually like 10 years ago
Yeah.
when a lot of people didn't know anything about computers. When my first AARP convention, they brought some computers for people to use, and the first lady grabbed the mouse and put it up on the screen because she thought that's was
It,
logical.
and it seems
Um,
silly to us, but I mean, it was only natural for her, I guess.
Exactly, exactly. And, so sometimes today we have to explain to people what exactly the internet is, what social media is, what to look for, what we'll talk about today, what to look for in a new computer.
Mhm.
And hopefully we take this information and get it to the people who need it.
Right, absolutely. And if nothing else, we are also talking to the people who then take it and explain it to, maybe loved ones who you're buying a new computer for grandma. There you go. Now you can get a little information and hopefully convey it to her. Or, hey, better for Computer America, tell her to listen in, please.
That's
That'd
right.
be great. So, yeah. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to our first topic? And as you said, laptops. If someone out there has not been in the laptop shopping market lately, there's a bunch of different kinds of laptops. So if you could just kind of go over some of the different types of laptops, because as I understand it, there's complete workstation replacements, there's your average, there's like your super thin ultrabooks, there's 2-in-1, which we're going to talk about. Just talk about the laptop market in general, and then why you were drawn to 2-in-1s.
Okay. Well, to start with, if you go into a technology store today, go into Best Buy, you'll find very, very few computers that actually have a case, on the floor, that sort of thing. You'll find a few all-in-one computers. But the main thing that you're going to find is laptops. And there are a zillion different types of laptops. Um, and that's what everybody's going to because of portability and everything else. Plus, the laptops over the years have gotten so powerful. Several years ago, maybe you couldn't get a laptop to be as good or as fast as a desktop, but today you can.
Hmm.
The thing that I've been drawn to is these new, what they call convertible laptops. And basically, they also call them 2-in-1s. And what that is, it's a laptop computer and a tablet at the same time. So the laptop will have a base, that has the keyboard and, your touchpad and all
So
that.
kind of like a dock.
Yeah, kind of like a dock, but basically you just flip the screen to the back. So flip the screen to the back and you're now in tablet mode on Windows 10. And tablet mode lets you do everything that you could do with a tablet. So basically you have 2-in-1. You have a computer or a laptop with a keyboard and touchpad, and you have a full touch screen tablet at the same time.
So, and I guess the first thing I have to ask you is that we saw this idea really come to the forefront with everything Windows did, or I should rather say Microsoft did with Windows 8. Windows 8 and 8.1, it was a hugely focused on mobile computing, on smartphones, try to be, a ubiquitous operating system. We saw how well that worked, but at the same time, it, I guess they tried to show off what Windows 8 and 8.1 could do by, kind of mixing a traditional laptop and a tablet that could, have a more touch mobile interface.
Right.
Just like I haven't checked it out lately, but has that experience, kind of translated over to Windows 10? Because Windows 8 no longer being pushed by Microsoft, is the user experience still there for Windows 10 and this two-in-one?
It is. Actually, the computer itself is a full laptop with the keyboard, but when you flip it over, you get the tablet experience, which Microsoft now in Windows 10 has two modes. And if you go to the Action Center, if you don't use the Action Center, if you have a touch screen, you can just scroll it onto the screen from the right side. And basically, you go there and you click to turn the tablet mode on. And so it's got a mode that is completely made to run a tablet, that everything is done by touch. And then
That's
when you unfold your
Mhm.
computer so that you're using the keyboard, you go to the other mode in Windows 10. And so it's a complete experience that is finally actually become a good experience.
Right, yeah, and yeah, that's a very good point about the whole Action Center. I think that's a feature, at least personally for Windows 10. I check it once in a while whenever I see a notification. I really don't pay attention to it. If other people out there have used computers for a while, I guess I'm kind of used to control panel, system settings, system preferences. Kind of going into those. Kind of tiered menu, Explorer kind of systems. But I guess the Action Center, you're right. You open it up, bottom right on a Windows 10, and right there, like I don't have a touch screen, but tablet mode is kind of blacked out for me, but it's right there. So I guess Microsoft didn't completely abandon some of the things they learned from Windows 8, and they just kind of made it a bit more, like if you need it, you know where to find it. If you don't, it's completely out of the way. So,
Exactly. And it's very, very good. I mean, they did a nice job with it. The funny thing, Ben, is I've had a couple times since Windows 10 came out when people would call me or I'd have to go over and try to help them with their computer, and the screen looked totally different than what they were used to, and they couldn't figure it out. And they had it in tablet mode.
mm,
So it can be turned on accidentally. And if that happens, all your icons disappear and become different. And it's just a different experience. So it's been kind of funny when I could just walk in and say, "Oh, yeah, I know what's wrong with your computer," and do one tap on the Action Center, uh,
and fix
turn
it.
the tablet mode off, and they're back to where they were before.
Right. So
Yeah.
and so like looking at this, and in the notes, in the show notes, we have a couple. You named a couple of these two-in-one laptops. If you're watching the video portion, we are looking at the HP Envy X360. Which one of the? And we're also going to talk about the Yoga. Which one did you want to look at first? And then I also want you to answer. Why would someone consider this two-in-one over maybe two separate devices? Like a tablet and a laptop.
Okay. Well, let's start with looking at the devices themselves. The two devices that I've kind of compared are the HP Envy and the Lenovo Yoga. And the reason I do those for a comparison is because they're very similar two-in-one machines, and yet there's a lot of huge differences. So let's start by talking about the differences. Um, when you buy one of these machines, first decision you have to make is how big should the screen be? Now, along with how big the screen should be, comes the fact that if the screen is bigger, the entire computer is heavier.
Mm-hmm.
So the HP Envy is a 15.6-inch screen, and it's almost 5 pounds. Now, that's still fairly light for a laptop, but the Lenovo Yoga, which I looked at, has a 13-inch screen and is under 3 pounds.
Hmm.
So,
I
so that's
yeah.
that's the first thing. Do you want this big thing in your lap? Are you going to use it more on a desktop or on your lap? Okay,
Yeah.
so all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that 2 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but if
But
you
it
are,
is.
yeah, so if you are carrying this thing around multiple hours a day for work or whatever you do, yeah, I guess that the form factor does make a pretty big difference. So, and kind of interesting as well that the more expensive one is actually the lighter one, and I don't know if that speaks to build quality. I don't know if that speaks to just the design differences between Lenovo and HP, but pretty interesting.
Very interesting. And the screen size also has to do with screen quality, that sort of thing, but also has to do with the size of the text that you're reading. So if you're doing a lot of work in, say, Microsoft Office, you could do it on either of these machines without a doubt. However, you might be constantly making things bigger on the little machine, and 13 inches is it is a tablet size. It's no bigger than many tablets. Um, so basically, um, your your eyes have to have something to say about this. if you
Right.
if you have aging eyes or you have any eye difficulties at all, that might be reason to go with a bigger screen, even if you'd rather have more portability. That's the thing with all these two-in-ones in particular, even more so than with computers, is you're gaining in one area and you're losing in another. So you get a bigger screen, but it's a little heavier. It just goes back and forth. There is no two-in-one out there that I think is absolutely ideal
Right.
for
And
everyone.
right. But one thing that I do want to draw people's attention to, and this is something that I've run into in the past, I'm not sure how common it is currently, but I purchased a laptop and the screen resolution, something I really didn't pay attention to before this laptop, uh, it was sent out to me, and I guess I didn't specify, I didn't ask. I think most people are used to 1920 by 1080. That's standard HD size.
Right.
And of course, we're slowly moving to 38, 40, whatever by 20, whatever, which is 4K. But I got a laptop that was like 1366 by 768. It's a pretty old standard. But
Right.
the worst part is that screen resolution, it can really ruin your experience because even simple things like browsing the internet, you have essentially less space to work with on your screen. It's super annoying.
Exactly, exactly. So that brings us to the point that the first thing you need to do when buying something like this is decide exactly what you want to use it for. And so you might be looking at like I said, a bigger screen if you're going to do a lot of Microsoft Word documents or Excel documents or anything like that. You also might want to go with a bigger screen just to get 4K.
Hmm.
Because, all right, let's say you want to watch movies on these things. And a lot of people watch Netflix or other movies, TV shows on these two-in-one machines. So, how good the screen is and what kind of resolution is extremely important. That brings you right back to the next important thing, which is audio. Now, if you're just using it for computer type chores, you're not going to care too much what the audio is. However, if you're going to watch movies or listen to music, you know, the audio makes a huge difference. Is it stereo? Is it mono? Does it have a recognized brand audio or not? So,
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah, and some of the better ones are, of course, I've always been partial to computers that have like Bose built in or one of these other, kind of companies. But and I guess my question to you, you reviewed these two. I'm sure you looked at a few others. Um, how much can you really expect though from uh, because if someone said, "Wow, the audio on this tablet's really good," I would say, "Good for a tablet, right?" Like I kind of don't expect that much from a tablet. I can expect a little bit more from a laptop. What kind of sound quality should one expect from a two-in-one?
I think that the sound quality is quite good, especially on the HP Envy that I reviewed. It's got Bang Olufsen
Mm,
speakers, and it's just excellent, excellent sound. Now, of course, it's not going to be like the stereo system you might have set up on your television or surround sound or
right.
anything like that, but darn good. They're getting darn good, the audio.
All right.
Much, that's one place that they've improved a lot over the years. The screen resolution and the audio have both improved a lot.
Perfect. That's what we want to hear. And then, so we have screen resolution. We have, kind of what do you want to use it for? How much variability do you have when going from, one system to another? And we're not talking like, 400 versus, 1200, but, similar priced. What can these things be set up for? Because there's variances in like pattern in wow, battery life, or kind of like
Right.
processing power. What can these things be set up for? Are they for work, strictly entertainment?
Both, and that probably is the point of most of it. I can use the HP Envy for just about anything that I do. Now, the one I reviewed is an i7, and it's got 8 gigs. No, it's got 16 gigs of memory. So it's a fast machine. It can do just about anything that my standard desktop can do.
Hmm,
Um, but because it's a tablet, you can also use it to color pictures, play games, do whatever you might do more on a tablet. So they're kind of multi-purpose. Now, you do miss out on a couple things with these two-in-ones, and the same as with a lot of laptops today. There's no optical drives because they can't fit them in, obviously, if you've got two thin screens, one with the screen and one with the keyboard,
right.
excuse me, there's no place for the optical drive. And that's not a big miss for anybody anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay
Uh,
with that lately. It's only come up really like almost never. I have a DVD writer, a DVD reader player, a CD player like built
mhm.
built into my computer, and I'll be honest, that thing might as well just be a cup holder at this point. I use it so infrequently, so but that's pretty standard for.
Right,
Or has been the standard for ultrabooks for a while, and I guess that's now bleeding into two-in-ones, and I'm sure
that's right.
eventually laptops.
Now, the one thing that is not quite so normal today is that there's no Ethernet port. Now, you think,
Hmm.
well, okay, I don't need an Ethernet port because I'm going to be walking around with this thing and all that. But there are times when there's nothing like a wired connection.
Right.
When you've got poor wireless, or when you're at a desktop and you might like to plug in an Ethernet port wire, and you can't do it with these. So that's just, I mean, it's not anything that's necessary, but it's something that, again, certain people might miss.
There's and I guess there's a workaround kind of, and maybe kind of sort of using your smartphone as a repeater, where
Right.
you connect it to Wi-Fi, turn your phone into a hotspot, and then connect your two-in-one to your smartphone Wi-Fi hotspot. But that's pretty technical, or can be pretty technical, and if you don't have a solid Wi-Fi, then you're eating up data. So I'm kind of with you on that one. I am a diehard, hard connection kind of guy. So that's pretty interesting. But I guess it's the form factor, right? Like that's the main limiting factors. You
Exactly.
don't want those adapters on the sides.
Right. Well, they don't have room for it.
Right.
To be honest, they don't have room to put that in. So now, these two-in-ones come with all sorts of processors, all sorts of memory. Of course, they'll all have at least 2 gigs of memory, but you can easily go up to 16 gigs. Anything from an i3 to an i7 is kind of standard of what you'd find. Um, but you have to, again, decide how much power do you need. The i7 is the HP that I am having
Mm-hmm.
is an i7, and it's much faster than the Lenovo, which happens to be an i5.
Hmm.
Now, the memory also has something to do with that. One thing that this Lenovo has that I wish was in the Envy, because the Envy has just about everything else, um, is an SSD. It's
Well,
got physical
and
hard drive and an SSD.
right, and I'm kind of again, if you're watching the video portion, we're kind of poking around the tech specs as we talk, and I was actually surprised that I was just looking at the memory because I saw that tablets are considered kind of mobile devices, and when you want to expand the memory, mainly you're looking at whatever comes with it, and then maybe an SD slot if you're lucky.
Right.
But I was actually looking at the tech spec for the Envy, and I was surprised that you can actually get an M.2 SSD, which is kind of the newer technology as far as
Right.
SSD goes. So like that's pretty exciting. So there
Yeah,
are some
it
options
is.
there.
And the SSD for people that don't know, these hybrids that have both an SSD and a physical hard drive,
Right.
basically they boot up from the SSD, so they boot up much faster
Right.
than the older technology, the older hard drives.
I mean,
So that's besides
yeah.
added space, it's something else to think about.
Right, and just personal anecdote. About a year ago, I upgraded from an SSD to. Oh, and by the way, Sandy, I'm sure you didn't hear, but I actually had an SSD fail on me like last month that caused a massive amount of headaches.
Mm.
It was a stressful time for everyone. But I will say that about a year ago, I did upgrade from an SSD to an M.2. And they always say that oh, your boot time is like 20-30 seconds. I will say that with an M.2, my boot time went down to like 13 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
It's
It
it's really great technology.
it's very, very noticeable.
Yeah.
It's very noticeable. Now, again, you don't have to necessarily turn these things off all the time, but when you do, it's really spectacular to come on that fast.
Right. So let's talk about some of the other features that you kind of expect from more of a tablet, because those have things like front-facing, rear-facing cameras. Being able to use apps instead of apps meant for like smartphones and the like, instead of like full-blown computer apps or vice versa. Talk about some of the things that you kind of get that you don't get with a traditional laptop.
Well, really, with Windows 10 being app driven now, the apps that basically can run on usually on both, either the desktop or the tablet mode. So there's very little difference. There is a big difference in the video graphics. You have to be careful that you get something with a good graphics board, especially if you're doing a lot of gaming apps. And I don't mean heavy duty gaming, because I think that most people who are into heavy duty gaming are going to get something with a really expansive graphic board and all that.
Right.
Uh, but you can do all these things on both of these. The battery life is something else you have to be careful of, and these both have excellent battery lives. So if you're looking at, I don't have it in front of me, but you know, something like 8 hours
Mm-hmm.
is considered good for one of these two-in-ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just kind of looking at these 4 cell 55.67 watt hour. So obviously, oh, here we go. Battery life for the Envy is about 10 hours, just under
10
10 hours,
hours. Yeah.
and then I'm sure
hmm
the Yoga is somewhere in the same neighborhood. But of course, that's all kind of what you do with it. Like if you're maybe browsing the internet, checking email, it's gonna last you 10 hours. Maybe if you are sketching using like an art kind of app, maybe more intensive, that will last you maybe 5 or 6 hours. So with that said, Sandy, we're actually already coming up to our mid-show break. So
All right.
yeah, that kind of flew by. So when we come back, we'll get your final verdict. We'll talk about what you really liked about two-in-ones and what you thought, your final thoughts on these two in particular. And then everyone else, when we come back, we have many more topics, including we're going to move on to, again, the Epson Eco Tank or Eco Tank printer and Sandy's experience with that. And also, if we have time, we're going to talk smart assistants and the like. So everyone, stay tuned. Computer America, and of course, Sandy Berger from CompuKiss. Everyone, stay tuned.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Why? Because you can save 45% on packages compared to your high-priced cable bill. Wow. Take those giant scissors out and cut the cable and save with Dish TV. Plus, you get a free DVR upgrade to record your favorite shows and free installation. And with Dish Anywhere, you can watch TV for free on your mobile device. Act fast. You can save hundreds of dollars. Does your cable company do that for you? I don't think so. Get all the best TV programming at your fingertips at a fraction of the price of cable TV. So say adios, arrivederci, goodbye to the high cable bill and save up to 45% on Dish TV packages today. These are limited time offers and can change at any time. Call fast.
800-471-5325. 800-471-5325. 800-471-5325. That's 800-471-5325.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour, and if you miss any part of our conversation so far, you can head on over to Computer America or wherever podcasts are heard. And the podcast version of Computer America is simply the entirety of today's show, rebroadcast wherever podcasts are heard. So you can find us, and I think you could even ask Amazon's Echo, I don't want to say her name, and I think we'll come up. We need to double check that. But either way, joining us or continuing on with us is, of course, Sandy Berger. She is Computer America's consumer electronics expert, and, of course, with CompuKiss. So, like I said, Sandy, right before we left, we have been, really going over the Yoga 720 and the HP Envy X360, and, I guess we can't completely say 720 is twice as good as 360, but we, I guess we've been, kind of speaking in generalities, and then we've been speaking to these two devices. So let's talk in general. What do you really like about two-in-ones? And then specifically, what do you like about or not like about these two products in particular?
Okay, in general, I love the two-in-ones. I think that they're very, very useful because you're getting two things in one. And the way Windows 10 is set up, it's easy to use. So I love that. The in particulars of these two, the thing is that you can do a lot more on these than with a regular laptop. There's no doubt about that. The Lenovo Yoga, I had some serious problems with the touchpad. And when I went online, of course, everybody else in the world had problems with the touchpad. And I finally did find that you could update the firmware. But there's nothing more frustrating than having a brand new device that isn't working properly.
Oh, for sure.
And when if you go on, when you get the machine and you register it, well, they know you own it. So it just is mind-boggling to me that Lenovo couldn't say, okay, you just bought this. We want you to know they're having some problems. This is where you go to solve it. Okay, but they don't do that.
Companies,
They just
yeah.
leave you hanging.
Yeah, companies can't get that right. I mean, just yesterday, I was having problems with with playing a video or something like that on my computer, and went to Google. I'm pretty good at googling problems, and I went to it was like the official Windows forum, and like someone asked the exact same question I had, and it was Windows associates. Like they had the name badge. They were
Hmm.
verified official Windows representatives and technicians, and like they were giving completely wrong information. Like they were telling you to do things that just are not in Windows 10. They were there in Windows
Right,
7, but not in Windows 10. So
right.
companies and troubleshooting, there's work to be done there for sure.
Definitely,
So that's unfortunate to
definitely.
hear about Lenovo, but
But once we got through that, the touchpad problem, the Lenovo's been working fine, and it's just a real pleasure to use because it is so portable and it's so lightweight that I can have it. I can have it in my lap with my little dog. I have a little Yorkie that I'm babysitting right now,
mhm.
or dog sitting, I should say. But I could actually have both of those in my lap at the same time. So it's got its usefulness, no doubt about it. Now, the HP Envy, I had not a problem in the world, no problem setting it up. Everything went smoothly with it. I only have one complaint about it.
Oh yeah.
The keyboard, which is excellent, backlit keyboard, which I love. Um, However, it's a silver. The keys are silver, and the print on the keys is also silver. Now, I'm a touch typist, so that doesn't have too much weight with me. However, the first time I sat down in a sunny room and looked at it, I could not see the labels on the keys, which I thought was really bad because sometimes you want the control key or some other key, and if you can't see it, that's only in a sunny room. If you know, go someplace a little darker, you won't
Right.
have that problem. But that's the only problem I had with the Envy.
Yeah,
So,
it's yeah, it may not seem like a big problem, but as with all new keyboards, especially built-in ones, everything's just that little bit different to fit into the same space. So not all keyboards are exactly the same. That
all
can
right.
be a problem. So and again, we're kind of looking at it. I can almost already see it. They have a picture here where I guess if there's a bit of a glare, you're not going to be able to read the keys. So,
Right. And
but
and the solution was very, very easy. They could have, instead of putting silver letters on the keys, they could have put black letters on the keys.
or
Maybe it wouldn't, they did it because it wouldn't look as pretty with black, but it would certainly be more useful.
And and I feel like if you go through all the trouble of backlighting your keys, you could even put like some kind of clear acrylic or plastic, and then the letters would just kind of shine instead of just being
Oh,
silver on silver.
that's interesting. Okay. We'll
It's just
suggest that to them.
yeah, there you go. So, but at the same time, so both of these again, each one runs somewhere between like 750 and the other one's like 950. Who would you kind of recommend these to? Is this anyone who would normally use a laptop? You'd say you got to try a two-in-one. Is this people who are traveling a lot? Who would be interested in these?
I think anybody who wants to use it outside of an office or desktop environment, these are very useful. So if you're going to buy a laptop, and a lot of people do buy a laptop that they sit on the desk and use it there most of the time, but they want the portability in case they go to somebody else's house or they go on vacation or something like that. Um, then that's one thing. But a two-in-one for someone who wants to move the thing around the house a lot, wants to sit with it in front of the television or wants to watch television on it, then the two-in-one is extremely useful.
Right, and again, just to be clear, two-in-one that's different from the three-in-one. I think the three-in-one, I don't know if that's gone by the wayside, but I think that made it so that the screen slash tablet was completely separate. Like you could, kind of have it those three different ways, and those were mainly targeted to students. Do you think that's
Right.
still the case? Like, are they still marketing to students going away to college, or are they just trying to take a more general, anyone would like this, not just students?
I think it's basically anyone would like this.
Hmm.
So They might still be making some of the others more convertible, but these are very, very good. I liked it.
All right. No, very well said. And again, we have a link to exactly what we talked about in the show notes, folks. If you want to check that out, please feel free to. But it sounds like you'd kind of recommend them. Even with Lenovo and their little, firmware snafu, that's hey, sometimes these things happen. So with that being said, let's jump to our next product. And like I said, folks, if you want to hear about the Eco Tank lineup of printers directly from Epson, we have, I think, one or two of our past shows with Epson have been either small, medium businesses using this or for consumers using this. One show and then the other was, for the other. But, they're biased because it's their baby and they like their own products. So that's okay. Sandy, you have I don't think you have any obligation to be biased towards them. You have reviewed the Eco Tank. And, from a lot of the reviews and, just kind of, well, actually, let's start with what was the promise of the Eco Tank? Why is this design so different for Epson?
The Eco Tank actually promises cheaper ink. And what it is for anyone who hasn't looked into it, you will see it. They're now quite prominent in Best Buy, Staples, and all those places. But basically, instead of using cartridges, they have ink tanks usually on the side of the printer, and you open it up and put in liquid ink. The promise is that this is going to be much cheaper than buying the ink cartridges, because you know how much money you have to put into ink cartridges for inkjet printers.
Yeah,
The thing that amazed me, now Epson sent me this Eco Tank a year and a half ago when they first came out. I loved it. My husband took it over. I didn't get to use it, but he's a realtor, and he prints a lot, whether it's contracts or pictures or whatever. So he has loved everything about this printer, and I just had to put some new ink in it, which, by the way, is very easy. You open it up and you put the ink in, and there's nothing to it. So it's not difficult. But anyway, I decided to go ahead and take a look at how much he's really printed, how old it was, because I forgot about that. And for anybody who doesn't know, there's usually a usage history sheet that you can print out from the printer itself, which will tell you how many pages you've printed since it was initiated.
Right. And I mean, just real quick, that feature is more for, most warranties are set up to we'll warranty it up to like 1 million print cycles or something like that. So
right.
It's kind of diagnostic information, but yeah, right. So go ahead.
Right. So anyway, he's printed in a year and a half, he's printed about 8,000 documents, sheets.
Not bad.
Okay.
Not bad. So a year, 8,000. Actually, that's better than not bad. That's like, maybe 2 or 3, or I'm sorry, 20 to 25 pages a day, over the course of a year. That's a lot.
Which is a lot of printing. And when I went back and looked at, okay, how much does the ink cost? How much would I have paid for ink over the year and a half? Most high-res cartridges print 800 pages. And they cost about $40. Now, there's others that only print 300 pages. We won't get into all that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take the high res that print 800 pages and he's printed 8,000 pages, how many cartridges would I have bought in that last year and a half?
Yeah, simple math would tell you, wow. Simple
Right.
math I can't really do right now. But yeah, it's $400.
Well,
Right?
I would have purchased about $400 worth of ink cartridges.
$400, and that it seems like a lot, but at the same time, completely reasonable, because if anyone out there has ever dealt with old printers, you had to look up the SKU number, you had to go into the shop, you had to buy them, and usually you kind of had to buy them in sets because they'd all kind of either dry up or use up at the same rate.
Right.
I mean, it was fairly convoluted, but $400 worth of cartridges. And you ended up spending what for the Eco Tank?
For the Eco Tank, I ended up spending $20, which was totally amazing to me. The reason that I went back to think about ink again is suddenly it was running out of colored ink. I had bought a bottle of black,
Hmm.
which was actually when I bought it, it was only $12. So it was less than that. But anyway, the price has gone up on some of the ink. So anyway, so say I paid $20 for a bottle of black ink, and the the individual color ink bottles have lasted all this time, which was totally amazing to me. And that's when I went back and looking at how much I spent, et cetera, et cetera. So it was phenomenal the amount that I've spent saved by using this eco tank.
Well, yeah, and I remember when I was talking to Epson, that was kind of the point of this whole product line was that people were very annoyed, and if you use printers over, let's say, the past 10 years, a lot of people compared it to the scheme of razors, where the handle in
Right.
your first two razors cost you a pretty low amount, and then the refills cost you like 2 or 3 times as much. And people associated that with printers, where you buy the printer's relatively cheap, comes with a set of ink, but then they earn their money on the back end when you have to keep buying ink, kind of like a drug dealer. But,
Right.
and I guess this is where Epson wanted to strike back. They wanted to say, all right, we get it. You don't want to pay more in ink. So I guess my question is, do you recall, Sandy, how much you spent on the initial purchase of this? And I don't know if you received this for
Well,
review,
well,
but
the printers themselves are a little bit more expensive, so
right.
you're going to probably pay $300 for an eco tank. I'm just guessing, versus some of the other cheap ones that you can get for $100.
I
But
yeah, I mean, the point I was trying to get across was, do you think that because again, you do pay more up front, but I mean, $20 as opposed to 400, I would think, definitely over the lifetime of the printer, if not the first year, you've kind of made up that initial investment, right?
right, exactly. And the printer is still working just fine, and I expect that it will be working fine for another couple years. So it's just amazing how much you can save. Now, the only, and it's not a huge drawback but to me, the only drawback to these printers is that you do have liquid ink in them. So although they're portable, you can pick them up and move them from one place to another. You don't want to be doing that every day or every month even, because you're taking a chance on spilling some of the ink.
Now, you said you just replaced the ink. Epson was pretty proud of their no spill ink refill technology. Did you find it messy in any way? Like, I'm not expecting you to throw it around the house, but was it messy at all?
No, it wasn't messy. I put on rubber gloves just because I tend to be messy
Hmm.
sometimes. I didn't want to, and I put newspaper under the on the floor and under the printer, and basically I didn't even need any of those precautions because it was extremely easy.
Hmm.
Um, just turn it over. You're putting it in. It's obvious what you're doing. And I think that some of the newer EcoTank printers that they've come out with might even be better than this one. This was the very first one that they came out with.
Right. Yeah, and well, I know that Ego Tank, they have come out with like, I think their original was still out there. It's I think their original was like kind of their entry point, and then they also had one for small medium business, but they've been adding different kind of types. There's one that prints photos very, very well, very, very vibrantly. There's ones that handle kind of everyday documents. I'm sure like your husband's doing. Which one did you kind of get? Was it just kind of I
Well,
think
like I said, this was the first one. It's called ET4550, and it was the first one that they've come out with. So it is not phenomenal for photos,
right.
but it's good enough for simple brochures that he does. So I'm sure that what they have out there now is better. I'm just kind of saying to people, wow, this is a real money saver if you print a lot. So if you do print a lot and you want to save money on ink, this is the place to go.
Right. And I guess you also don't have to deal with I guess where did you buy the ink directly from Epson? Because I think a lot of people, when they had these old printers that took these cartridges that, were plagued with their own problems, such as OEM, and you couldn't buy them from third parties, or you couldn't buy refills. Um, that was a whole mess. Where'd you buy the ink from? Did you buy directly from Epson?
I bought the ink from Best Buy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sure they're licensed.
No
Reseller.
problem. Now, when I first looked at the ink, when the printer first came out, the ink was like $12 a bottle. And now it's gone up to about $20 a bottle. And I didn't shop around for it. I just went to Best Buy and bought it.
Right.
And there might be other places you could go to get it cheaper. Um, but I thought that was cheap enough, so I didn't worry about it.
All right. So yeah, and again, if you're watching the video portion, we've been kind of looking at all the different ones. You had like the 4550. I think they're up to like the 4750, so 2 generations more. But yeah, there's one for kind of every different level. So I will say that we did get a chance to look at them. We talked at length with them with Epson. And I will say, as a company, they just seem very, very proud of what they did with it, because, yeah, I think the ink cartridge refill process was one of the biggest pain points in using a printer. Setting up printers was a pain point. I think that's pretty well solved, and the ink was the next one. So Eco Tank, maybe it'll come to more and more models, but very, very cool that you liked it. So I think in these last 10 minutes, Sandy, if you don't mind, we can move on to some digital assistant talk, because I will admit you are probably our foremost expert in digital assistants as far as they go. Some of our other correspondents have mentioned them, but you probably have the most hands-on experience with these devices. So you wanted to talk about the Amazon and the Google assistants built into third parties. I have to go get some material together in just a minute to talk about some of the new features, one of which I think, and I'm just speaking off the top of my head, I think it was the Amazon device now lets you do like a speaker function. Like you can speak into Amazon, and any other Amazon, it will kind of broadcast your voice to every other device in your home. So
That's right. That's right. I love that feature. I use it all the time. And Google Home was the first one to come out with that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if you have, like I do, you have several devices in various places in the house, all you do is say, call the name.
Right.
I can't say it.
Right, yeah.
Well, you call Google and you say broadcast, and then anything you say after broadcast, it will broadcast to every other device in the house. So if you happen to be in the bedroom and you've fallen down and need some help, you can just broadcast to every other device in the house. Great for people who especially have 2-story houses and they don't want to run up or down the stairs to talk to the other person. So Google came out with that, about 2 months ago, and Amazon just decided to announce the same thing for their Echo devices.
Right.
And the only difference that I see in the two is one uses the word broadcast, that's Google, and Alexa uses announce, which is easy to remember because Alexa uses the A word.
Right.
So you say announce, I need you here right now, whatever, and it will broadcast it.
Right. And really, it just drives the point home that, well, first of all, competition is good. It leads to, a bit of innovation between the two products, and I guess 3 if you include the Apple system. But also the fact that these things, as we have mentioned many times before when we talk about these, they get better over time. They get more and more skills, and they get more and more useful. So, but with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to your point? Only a couple minutes. So let's just talk about, the good ones. Let's try to keep it positive and talk about third-party smart speakers.
Okay. Well, that's the one thing that I see happening now is that we say third party, we mean there are Google Home devices that are not made by Google, and there are Amazon Echo devices. Well, they're not actually devices. They have their own names, but they have Alexa built in or they have Google Home built in.
Mm.
And Sonos is one of the big ones that has that now. They have Alexa built in, and it's very, very good. It's just like buying an Amazon Echo, could do all the things that the Echo can do, and they keep learning the same way the Echoes do, um, which is phenomenal. But with everybody jumping on the bandwagon, there are some things that are out there that are just not as good as they should be. And so I want to warn everybody to be careful. Um, my advice would be if you're buying an Amazon Echo, buy it from Amazon. If you're buying Google Home, buy it from Google or from a reputable dealer with the Google name on it. Um, because there's so many out there now, and I seen one in particular that I really didn't like. It was called iLive, which is a pretty big brand, and it was the Amazon Echo type device. Looks like an Amazon Echo, and it's supposed to act like an Amazon Echo, except it's cheaper.
Yeah.
However, you can't combine two speakers. They can't play the same thing at the same time. There's all sorts of restrictions on them. So my point here again, be very careful if you're not going to buy a Google branded or Amazon branded device. Check it out, read some reviews, and see if they do everything that the device is supposed to do.
And if you could remind me the different type, it was like the Amazon Echo, and then there was like the bigger one. It was I think it was the Echo Plus. There we go. That's what it's called.
Oh yeah.
The iLive looks a lot like the Echo Plus, but then your first warning that I think this goes for not just iLive, but for technology in general. iLive is a third of the price of the name brand, the actual recognizable one.
Right.
And,
Right.
that's just kind of how technology works, is that if you kind of do get what you pay for. So a third of the price, that's a red flag, and you should really drill down and see why it's a third of the price. Because odds are it's not just markup, you're actually missing a number of features. So
In some cases, you are. Now, I also bought recently, and it was very inexpensive because it was a $49 product that was on sale at the time for like quite a bit less. I can't remember exactly,
mhm.
but it was by Insignia, which is Best Buy's brand, and it's a Google Home with a
It's an
alarm
alarm
clock
clock.
built
Yeah.
in.
Well, kind of the other way around. It's an alarm clock with Google Home built in. And I'll tell you where they
Exactly.
saved the money. They saved it in the product design, because this thing looks straight out of the 90s. It is if
Hmm.
you've ever seen an alarm clock, yeah, it's exactly what you're thinking it is. Yeah.
Right, right. So you see where they saved the money on the design and maybe a couple other features, but basically it does everything that Google Home does, which is really cool, and it connects to other speakers with Google Home and everything. So my point again, just read some reviews if you're going to buy an off-brand, and know that there might be places that they really did save money.
Right. So, yep, there's that. And we have everything else that we talked about in the show notes. Sandy, I hate to do this, but we are just flat out of time. The music should be starting right there.
There it
And
is.
yeah, and so, Sandy, I'll let you go ahead and have the last word. If people want to find out more about what you are doing and what you're writing and things like that, where can they go?
Please come visit me at the CompuKiss website. I'd be happy to see you there. On the blog, you can leave messages and I'll take a look at that.
Mhm.
And happy to be here. See you all next month.
Looking forward to it, absolutely. And maybe we'll get a bit more into we talked about social media very quickly at the beginning of the show, and let's face it, what we do on social media is quickly blending in with what we do with digital assistants. So, hey, a lot of topics, and again, our consumer electronics expert here on Computer America, Sandy Berger. Sandy, again, happy to have you on, and thank you for giving us your time.
All right. Thanks, Doll. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so everyone else out there, thank you for tuning in to Computer America, and please, please, please feel free to tune in tomorrow as we have on the program, let me get this right, we are going to have a company called Berger, and we have the Director of Security Product Management, and hey, it's going to be a lot of fun. So everyone, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, Computer America. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much, and check out the show notes. Bye-bye.